Center of the galaxy, inside a massive chamber made of crystal and gold, the Galactic Council gathered. Hundreds of alien races filled the hall, their voices echoing through the air like waves. At the front stood the Thalkor envoy, an old creature with dark blue skin and eyes that glowed faintly in the light. He looked tired, his hands shaking as he raised a small device that projected the image of a blue planet. Earth. The crowd murmured. Humans? One of the Empire's generals asked, his voice filled with disbelief. You called us here for that? The envoy nodded slowly. You must not underestimate them, he said quietly. Their world is dangerous. Their species has survived everything, fire, famine, war, even their own mistakes. They do not fear extinction. They grow stronger because of it. The words made some of the aliens laugh. The Empire's delegate, a tall figure with silver armor and piercing red eyes, leaned forward and said, Old myths and empty fears. Humans are nothing but primitive creatures. They still struggle to reach the edge of their system. You insult the Empire with this nonsense. The Thalkor envoy took a slow breath, his gaze steady. You believe your fleets, your weapons, your numbers make you untouchable, he said. But there is something in them, something your kind does not understand. They do not surrender. They do not accept limits. If you strike them, they rise again, stronger than before. His voice trembled as he added softly, and they remember. The Empire's general smirked. We will remember to destroy them if they ever become a problem. The council erupted with laughter again. The envoy lowered his head and turned away. You will remember, he whispered, but too late. Far from the glittering council in the quiet darkness near Mars, a small human ship drifted. Its hull bore scars from old battles, its engines hummed with low power. Inside, Captain Hale stared at the holographic projection of an approaching fleet. His crew waited in silence. Identify them, Hale said. The officer beside him hesitated. Sir, they're not friendly. Imperial markings confirmed. At least 20 ships. Hale leaned closer. 20 ships? He smiled faintly. So the stories were true. They're finally here. The Imperial fleet glided into the solar system with precision. Their ships were massive, smooth, and covered in shining silver plating. The lead ship sent a transmission. A deep voice filled the comms. Humans of Earth, you are now under Imperial observation. Do not resist, and your species will be spared. On Earth, governments scrambled. Emergency channels went live, and old protocols that hadn't been used in decades were activated. Across the world, soldiers and scientists worked together, preparing something no alien had ever seen, the Terran defense grid. It was not made of metal alone, but of fields of energy that stretched between orbital stations and hidden satellites. The sky above Earth shimmered faintly as the system powered on. In orbit, Captain Hale's fleet came online. Small ships moved like shadows, their surfaces absorbing light. Hale opened a direct channel. This is Captain Hale of the Terran Defense Fleet, he said calmly. You have entered restricted space. Turn back immediately, the Imperial commander laughed. You dare issue threats to the Empire? Your kind should be honored, we noticed you. He raised his hand. Prepare to fire. Before his command could be completed, the stars around his fleet shifted. Every sensor flickered. The Imperial officers shouted in confusion. Jamming. We've lost readings. Lights dimmed across their ships. Then something appeared behind them. Faint ripples like distortions in space itself. Human ships emerged, black and sleek, their edges glowing with soft blue energy. Captain Hale watched silently from his bridge. Lock coordinates, he said. Show them we're not the same humans they laughed at. In a flash of light, the human ships moved. They didn't fire projectiles or beams. Instead, invisible pulses rippled through the void. The Imperial ships trembled as their hulls bent unnaturally, metal twisting as if pulled by gravity itself. One by one, they began to vanish. Not destroyed, but swallowed by space. The Imperial commander screamed for retreat, but it was too late. The ships around him disintegrated into silence. His last words before his comms cut were filled with disbelief. Impossible. Then he was gone. On Earth, sensors showed the sky returning to calm. The Terran defense grid lowered its power. The news never reached the public. Only those in command knew what had happened, and they made sure it stayed a secret. Captain Hale stood before the viewing window watching the stars. They thought we were weak, he said quietly. His second officer replied, They won't think that again. Light from the sun broke across his ship's hull. reflecting over the silent battlefield. No one celebrated. There was no cheering, no victory music, only a quiet understanding. Humanity had crossed a line. They had revealed a fraction of their strength to the galaxy. And far away in the Imperial capital, reports arrived in fragments. The Council demanded answers. The Emperor listened, his face unreadable. "Find out who warned them," he said softly. "And prepare the Armada." Back in the shadows of space, Captain Hale closed the communication feed. "They'll come again," he said. His crew nodded. "Then we'll be ready," he added, his voice steady. Outside the viewport, the stars seemed brighter, not peaceful, but watching. The first contact had ended. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. The galaxy was silent in the days that followed. Word of the vanished Imperial fleet spread quietly, whispered between traders and explorers in deep space. No one had seen such a thing before. Ships disappearing without explosions, without debris, without even a trace of heat. The Empire's high command called it a navigational accident, but out in the colonies, everyone knew the truth was being buried. Something had happened near the human world, something that frightened even the most powerful government in the galaxy. On the Outer Rim, an Imperial investigation fleet was dispatched under the command of Admiral Laron. Unlike his predecessor, he was cautious. His ships moved slowly, scanning every inch of empty space as they entered the Sol system. The closer they came to Earth, the stranger their readings became. Gravity fields fluctuated. Space itself seemed to shimmer. "What is this?" one officer asked. "It's as if space is breathing," another replied. The Admiral frowned. "It's human territory," he said. "Expect the unexpected." On Mars, Captain Hale stood before a large hollow table surrounded by his crew. "They're here again," said his second officer, pointing at the glowing red marks. Hale watched them carefully. "They're testing us this time," he said. "No arrogance. Just curiosity." He leaned forward. "Good. That means they're learning." He tapped the screen. "Activate the grid, but hold fire. Let them see what they're walking into." The Terran defense grid shimmered once again around the solar system, but this time, it was invisible to all known sensors. The human fleet stayed hidden in the dark side of Mars, silent and cold. Hale turned toward the communications officer. "Send them a message," he ordered. "Let's try talking first." A signal went out, short, calm, and clear. "Unknown fleet, you are entering restricted space. This is a peaceful warning. Turn back or identify yourself." Admiral Laron watched the message appear on his screen. The human voice was firm, not fearful. He felt a strange chill. "How do they know our position?" he asked. His officer replied, "Sir, they've jammed our sensors again." Laron clenched his jaw. "So it's true," he said quietly. "The first fleet didn't fail by accident." He opened a channel. "This is Admiral Laron of the Imperial Investigation Fleet," he said. "We come to discuss the disappearance of our ships. No hostility, only answers." The message went silent for a long moment. Then Captain Hale's voice came through, calm and steady. "Answers have consequences, Admiral. Are you ready for them?" Laron paused. "We are prepared for anything." Hale gave a small nod, even though the Admiral couldn't see him. "Very well," he said. "Approach carefully." The Imperial ships began to move closer, their weapons powered down. When they reached the orbit of Mars, something extraordinary happened. The void around them shimmered, and hundreds of human ships slowly decloaked. They weren't massive, but each one carried markings of ancient wars, and their energy signatures burned with strange gravity distortions. Laron's crew gasped. "They're using technology we've never seen," one said. "They're bending space itself." Hale's voice came again. "You see now why we asked to be left alone." Laron stared at the hologram in silence. "What happened to the first fleet?" he asked. Hale looked at him through the screen. "They tried to fire on us. We didn't fire back. We simply moved them out of existence." The Admiral's eyes widened. "You destroyed them?" Hale shook his head. "No, we removed them." "There's a difference." The silence that followed was heavier than any explosion. One of the human officers whispered, "Sir, we're detecting power spikes in their core reactors." Hale frowned. "They're scanning us," he said. "They're testing our limits." His voice turned cold. "They still don't believe." On the Imperial flagship, alarms began to sound. "Energy surge!" shouted an officer. The readings spiked so high they overloaded their displays. Before Laurent could react, the stars outside began to distort again. This time not because of human ships, but because of something deeper. The very space between Mars and Jupiter bent like liquid. A massive shadow appeared, Earth's Titan-class dreadnought Erebus. It emerged from a tear in space larger than any Imperial ship. Its hull glowed white and gold, its engines pulsing like a heartbeat. The Imperial fleet fell silent. Even Laren could not speak. "This is the Erebus, flagship of the Terran Defense Command." A voice boomed across every frequency. "Your presence here is unauthorized. You have 30 seconds to withdraw." The Imperial crew stared in disbelief. "We can't fight that," one whispered. Laren slowly nodded. "Prepare to retreat," he said softly. "This is not a battle. This is a message." Back on Mars, Hale watched as the Imperial ships turned away. He didn't smile. "They'll return," he said. His officer frowned. "Even after this?" Hale nodded. "Pride is more dangerous than fire. The Empire will never forgive humiliation." As the Imperial fleet vanished into hyperspace, the galaxy trembled with rumors once again. Stations across alien space reported strange gravitational readings near human borders. Fleets began to shift. Alliances started forming in secret. Everyone wanted to know one thing. Who were the humans really, and what had they become? Far away, in the dim halls of the Imperial Palace, the Emperor stood before a window overlooking his world. "So it begins," he said softly. "They were warned, and we ignored it. Now we face a storm of our own making." He turned to his generals. "Send word to every system. The humans must be contained before they rise." Back on Earth, under the calm blue sky, children played as if nothing had changed. But above them, orbiting silently, thousands of satellites watched the stars. Captain Hale's fleet floated in formation, engines humming softly. He looked out into the black horizon and said quietly, "We didn't start this, but we'll finish it." The sun rose behind his ship, light spilling across the silver hulls. The silence of space felt heavy, filled with tension and destiny. Humanity had shown its hand, not for conquest, but for survival. Yet deep down, everyone knew this was only the beginning. Across the galaxy, rumors about humanity spread faster than light. Traders whispered of a fleet that vanished near a blue world. Soldiers told tales of ships made of gravity and light. Some called them myths, others warnings. But deep inside the Imperial capital, the truth was impossible to ignore. The Emperor had seen the recordings himself. Ships melting into empty space, human vessels appearing from nowhere. It defied every known law of physics. His advisors wanted revenge, but he only said one thing: "We must understand them first." Weeks later, inside an Imperial research outpost on the planet Draven 6, scientists worked day and night studying fragments of wreckage from the vanished fleet. What they found was unsettling. The metal was fused on a molecular level, twisted as if space itself had folded and crushed it. One scientist, a young physicist named Corin, ran to his commander. "Sir, this is not a weapon. It's manipulation of gravity itself," he said. "The humans, they're not just using power. They're rewriting physics." The commander frowned. "That's impossible." Corin's eyes were wide. It was impossible until they did it. At the same time on Mars, Captain Hale watched intelligence reports flicker across his console. Human scouts had intercepted transmissions. The Empire was building a new fleet larger than any before. His officers waited for his reaction, but Hale only smiled faintly. "Of course they are," he said. "They always return for round 2. His voice was calm, but there was a quiet sadness in his tone. "They don't understand yet. This isn't about power. It's about respect." Hale turned toward the holographic map of the solar system. "They'll send an armada," he said softly. "And when they do, the galaxy will finally see what they tried to ignore." His second officer nodded. "Shall we prepare the fleet, sir?" Hale shook his head. "Not yet. Let them make the first move. The universe must witness their arrogance." Meanwhile, in the outer colonies, smaller alien nations were growing uneasy. The Thalkor envoy, old and frail now, traveled between worlds, warning anyone who would listen. "The Empire's pride will burn them," he said again and again. "Humanity does not seek war, but they will finish one if forced." Some leaders believed him. Others dismissed his words as the ramblings of an old fool. On the 15th day, the sky above Earth changed. Massive energy signatures appeared just beyond Neptune. The Imperial Armada had arrived. More than 2,000 ships. Their formation stretched across the darkness like a wall of light. The Imperial flagship, Eternal Sovereign, stood at the center, its hull covered with golden armor, glowing with reactor heat. Admiral Laren watched the blue planet from his command deck, his expression calm but uneasy. "They will fight," he said quietly to his crew. "But this time so will we." Back on Mars, alarms echoed through the Terran defense fleet. Captain Hale stood at the observation window watching the feed. "Here they come," he said. The room filled with tension. His crew waited for his orders. "Do we activate the grid?" someone asked. Hale shook his head. "Not yet. We'll let them see Earth first." The Imperial fleet advanced. Every ship radiated with energy, their sensors scanning every planet in their path. When they reached Mars orbit, they stopped. Then from the command deck of the Eternal Sovereign, a transmission went out. "Humans of Earth, surrender your systems and your fleets. The Empire offers peace in exchange for obedience." Captain Hale smiled faintly. "Peace," Omi repeated. "That's what they always say before destruction." He opened a channel to Earth. "This is Hale, Authorization Alpha. Engage the planetary shield." From the moon's dark side to the far edge of orbit, light rippled across space. A glowing wave expanded around Earth, the Terran shield. It was not visible before, but now it shimmered like liquid silver, reflecting sunlight. Every Imperial sensor went blind. Admiral Laren stared at the display. "What did they do?" His officer stammered. "Our systems can't read anything inside the shield. It's bending our signals." Laren clenched his jaw. "Fire a warning shot." A pulse of plasma roared across the void. It struck the shield and vanished without sound or light. A moment later, the space between the fleets twisted, and a voice echoed across every channel. "This is Captain Hale of the Terran Defense Command," he said. "You've been warned twice. This is the last." Then the shield opened like an iris. From within it, hundreds of human ships emerged. They moved in perfect silence, glowing blue and white, their thrusters leaving trails of golden fire. The Erebus led them, its hull gleaming under the sunlight. It dwarfed the Imperial ships. The battle began not with weapons, but with gravity. Human ships shifted positions faster than sensors could track. Space bent around them. Imperial missiles changed direction mid-flight, vanishing into warps of energy. When the Empire fired again, their shots simply disappeared. Then the human fleet responded. Blue rings of energy spread outward, touching enemy ships like ripples in water. One by one, Imperial ships went dark, their power systems collapsing. On the Eternal Sovereign, chaos broke out. "We're losing ships. Space is folding around us," an officer shouted. Laren stood frozen, watching as his fleet crumbled without a single explosion. Within minutes, silence returned. The Imperial Armada, 2,000 ships, was gone. Only one remained, the flagship floating helplessly. Hale's voice came again. "Now you understand. We asked for peace. You gave us war." Admiral Laren closed his eyes. "We surrender." Hale paused. "Surrender is not needed. Learn. That's all we ever wanted." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, every channel went silent. The Empire's might had fallen in moments. The news spread like wildfire. Humans had done what no species had dared. They had broken the Empire's power without destroying it. They had shown control, not domination. On Earth, people watched in disbelief as their defense fleets returned. No victory celebrations, no flags, just quiet relief. Captain Hale looked out at the stars and whispered, "Maybe now they'll finally listen." But deep inside the Imperial Palace, the Emperor stood before a burning hologram of his fallen fleets. "They showed mercy," he said softly. "That is their strength, and our weakness." He turned to his generals, his eyes cold as stone. "Prepare Phase 2. Humanity will not have the final word." And far away, beyond the edges of known space, something ancient stirred. A silent presence watching both the Empire and Earth. It had seen civilizations rise and fall before, and it whispered into the void. The game has only begun. The galaxy was in shock. For the first time in history, the Empire had been forced to retreat. Entire star systems erupted in whispers of rebellion, emboldened by the impossible victory of a single young race. On distant worlds, statues of imperial leaders were torn down. People chanted a new phrase in their native tongues: "Never underestimate the humans." But for humanity, there was no celebration. The silence after the battle felt heavier than any victory could bear. Captain Hale stood aboard the Erebus, looking at the stars through the panoramic window. The crew worked quietly, their faces calm but distant. "Status report," Hale said softly. His officer replied, "The Imperial fleet has fully withdrawn beyond the border sectors. Communications between their colonies are unstable." "They're afraid, sir." Hale nodded. "Fear doesn't last. Pride always returns." He turned toward the map of known space where glowing lines marked Imperial trade routes. "They'll regroup. They'll study us. They'll come back smarter." Back on Earth, the United Terran Assembly gathered for an emergency session. Holograms of leaders from every continent filled the great chamber, their faces serious. "We've proven we can defend ourselves," said Councilwoman Liara, the head of planetary defense. "But what if they return with allies?" A scientist from Luna Research Base stood. "They will. The Empire can't afford to lose face. But this is not the same galaxy we once feared. The smaller species in the Dravari, the Thalkor, the Veshan, they're watching. They'll side with whoever brings balance." At that moment, a transmission came through, an encrypted message bearing the seal of the Thalkor Alliance. The room fell silent as the image of the old envoy appeared. His once bright eyes were dim, but his voice was clear. "To the humans of Earth," he said, "the Empire will return, but not as you think. They will seek something older than your kind. Something that should never have been found. You must not let them reach the ruins of Kythera." The message cut off before anyone could reply. On the Erebus, Hale received the same warning minutes later. "Kythera?" his officer asked. "That name isn't in any archive." Hale looked thoughtful. Maybe it was erased for a reason. He walked toward the center of the bridge where a holographic map appeared. "Set a course for the outer rim," he ordered. "We're going to find out what the Empire is chasing." Meanwhile, within the Imperial capital, the Emperor stood in the ancient vaults beneath his palace. The walls were covered in inscriptions older than the Empire itself. His lead scientist, Corin, the same physicist who studied the wreckage, stood beside him, trembling. "My Emperor, these ruins predate our civilization by millennia. If the humans have reawakened what's buried here," the Emperor raised his hand. "They didn't awaken it. They became it." He turned, his eyes cold and calm. "The humans are not the threat. It's what they touched." He gestured to a floating relic in the center of the chamber, a cube made of glowing crystal and metal. Its surface pulsed with faint blue light, identical to the glow seen around human warships. "This is Kythera," he said. "The first civilization to bend space. The gods of gravity, as our ancestors called them." Corin stared in awe. "It's the same energy signature as the human fleet," he whispered. "They've rediscovered it." The Emperor stepped closer, his shadow stretching across the ancient symbols. "If we control it before they do, the balance will return to us." As the Empire began its secret project, the humans were already moving. The Erebus led a convoy of exploration ships toward the Kythera sector, a region long considered cursed. Strange energy storms swirled around shattered planets, and space itself bent in unnatural ways. Hale stood on the command deck as lightning-like currents crackled in the distance. "Whatever happened here," he said, "it wasn't a war. It was an ending." His second officer looked uneasy. "Sir, we're detecting massive gravitational fields ahead. Should we proceed?" Hale hesitated only for a moment. "We didn't come this far to turn back." The fleet moved forward, engines humming quietly. Then something flickered in the darkness, structures the size of continents suspended in space like frozen monuments. They glowed faintly as if alive. "Are those ships?" the officer asked. "No," Hale said slowly. "They're cities." As the fleet approached, one of the structures activated. Beams of light reached out, touching the human ships. Power surged through every system. Hale gripped the rail. "Shut it down!" he shouted, but it was too late. A deep voice, not human, echoed through their communications. "Children of Sol, you carry our legacy." Every crew member froze. The voice continued. "We were the Kythera. We built the path through stars. But our gift was stolen, twisted into tools of war. You must not repeat our mistake." Then the light faded, and silence returned. When the system stabilized, Hale stood motionless. "It spoke to us," he whispered. His crew exchanged stunned looks. "If the Empire finds this place," his officer said, "they'll use it as a weapon." Hale nodded. "Then we can't let them." Far away, deep within the Imperial fleet, Admiral Laren received the same readings. They found it first, his aide reported. Laren sighed. Then the race is over. The humans won. But the Emperor's voice soon echoed in his communicator. No, Admiral. The game begins now. You will retrieve Kythera, or die trying. As both fleets moved toward the heart of the ancient ruins, the galaxy held its breath. Two civilizations bound by pride and fear were about to uncover something older than war itself. And somewhere in the depths of the ruins, the faint hum of ancient power began to rise again, like the heartbeat of a god awakening after eons of silence. Captain Hale watched the glowing horizon of the Kytheran city and whispered to himself, "They tried to warn us. The question is, who were they warning us about?" The ruins of Kythera hung in the darkness like the bones of gods. Massive rings of shattered stone and metal circled a dead star, glowing faintly with blue energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. The Erebus and its fleet drifted silently through the debris, their engines dimmed. No one spoke. Every radar sweep returned impossible readings. Gravitational fields that curved back on themselves. Time delays between signals. Echoes that came from the future instead of the past. Captain Hale stood on the bridge, his face lit by the soft light of the console. "Record everything," he said quietly. His science officer, Dr. Merrick, nodded nervously. "Sir, this energy, it's alive. It's responding to us." Hale's eyes narrowed. "Then it's listening." Deep within the ruins, a massive structure came into view, a colossal spire that stretched kilometers high, suspended in space without any visible support. Symbols glowed faintly along its surface, and at the top a sphere of light hovered, flickering like a dying star. "That's the source," Merrick said. "Whatever the Kythera were. This is their heart. Approach carefully," Hale ordered. As the fleet drew closer, static filled the communications. Then a voice, a deep, distorted, and ancient, whispered through the speakers. "You walk the same path." As those who came before, the crew froze. "Identify yourself," Hale said calmly. "This is Captain Hale of the Terran Defense Fleet." Silence followed. Then the voice spoke again. "Humanity, we remember you." The words sent a chill through the bridge. Merrick's hands trembled. "Sir," did it just say remember? Hale's jaw tightened. "Play it again." But the voice was gone. Only the faint hum of the ship remained. Suddenly, sensors flared to life. "Multiple warp signatures," shouted the tactical officer. "It's the Empire." On the far edge of the system, massive Imperial warships burst from hyperspace, their silver hulls glinting in the light of the dead star. At the center was the Eternal Sovereign, leading the charge once more. Admiral Laren stood on its bridge, his expression hard. "The Emperor commands we retrieve the core," he said. "No matter the cost." The Erebus turned slowly, its hull glimmering with faint blue light. Hale watched as the Imperial fleet spread into attack formation. "So they followed us," he said quietly. His second officer nodded. "They'll fire first again, sir." Hale's voice was calm. "Let them." Moments later, space lit up. Beams of plasma and kinetic rounds streaked toward the human fleet. The Erebus didn't move. The weapons hit the outer field of the Kytheran ruins and vanished. Not exploded, not deflected, but erased. "What in the name of—" an Imperial officer shouted. Before they could react, the ruins answered. Blue energy flared from the spire, sending ripples of distortion across space. Imperial ships twisted and vanished into thin air. Hale stared at the readings. "The ruins are responding to their aggression," Merrick said. "It's protecting itself. Or us." Then the Kytheran voice returned, louder this time, resonating through every ship, human and Imperial alike. "The cycle returns. The children of war test the gift again." On the Eternal Sovereign, Admiral Laren gripped the rail. "What is this place?" he shouted. His science officer screamed over the static. "Sir, the structure is emitting energy beyond measurable limits. It's rewriting gravitational constants." Laren turned to his helm. "Retreat!" But it was too late. The Erebus moved forward slowly like a guardian awakening. Hale's eyes were fixed on the sphere at the top of the spire. "It's not attacking us," he said. "It's reacting to intent." Merrick's voice shook. "Intent?" Hale nodded. "It knows who comes in peace, and who doesn't." He opened a channel to the Imperial fleet. "Admiral Laren, listen carefully. Stop your attack or your fleet will be erased. This isn't a battlefield, it's a tomb." Laren's voice crackled back. "You think we'll take orders from you?" Hale's reply was firm. You won't live long enough to refuse. For a brief moment, silence filled the air. Then Laren gave the order. All ships stand down. The energy around the spire began to fade, the violent distortions settling into calm. Both fleets hovered in uneasy peace. Hale took a breath. Admiral, this technology doesn't belong to either of us, he said. We don't even understand it. We should leave it alone. Laren's image flickered on the holo display. You think I have that choice? The Emperor demands it. He believes the humans have already bonded with the relics. Hale studied him. There was no hate in Laren's eyes, only exhaustion. You know he's wrong, Hale said. This power doesn't belong to anyone. It was left here for a reason. Before the Admiral could answer, the sphere above the spire pulsed again, much brighter this time. The Kytheran voice thundered across the system. You are not ready. A beam of light shot outward, striking both fleets. Every ship shook violently. Systems went offline. Gravity reversed for seconds at a time. The crews screamed as their ships spun uncontrolled. Then just as suddenly the light vanished. When the human fleet regained control, the Imperial ships were gone, pulled somewhere beyond the system. Only empty space remained. Hale's crew stared in disbelief. They're just gone, Merrick whispered. Not destroyed, moved. Hale exhaled slowly. The Kythera took them. He turned toward the glowing spire. You protected us, he said quietly. But why? No answer came, only a soft hum that faded into silence. Hours later, Hale stood alone in his quarters recording a message. To the Terran Assembly, he said. The Kytheran ruins are real. They respond to emotion, to intent. The Empire is gone for now, not defeated but removed. We don't know where. This technology is beyond comprehension. I recommend we seal this sector and mark it forbidden. He paused, looking out the viewport. The dead star flickered faintly like an eye watching him. They remembered us, he whispered. But from when? Far away, in a distant corner of the galaxy, Admiral Laren's fleet reappeared, not destroyed but stranded in an unknown region of space. A vast city floated before them, glowing with the same blue light as the Kytheran ruins. Laren stood at the window, his voice a whisper. We didn't find Kythera, he said. Kythera found us. Admiral Laren's fleet drifted in silence, surrounded by a sky that was not their own. The stars were unfamiliar, their light dim and distant, and before them stretched a vast city that seemed to float between dimensions. Towers of white metal and energy bridges connected structures that shimmered like glass and mist. Gravity shifted around them, pulling and releasing in soft waves. No navigation system could recognize this place. They were lost, not in space, but somewhere beyond it. On the Eternal Sovereign, panic spread among the crew. We can't contact the Empire, shouted an officer. No signals, no relay points, no star charts. Admiral Laren stood motionless at the viewport, his hands clasped behind his back. Silence the alarms, he ordered. His voice was calm, though his eyes reflected the shimmering glow outside. We are guests here now. Moments later, light rippled across the alien city. Massive gates opened and spheres of blue energy floated toward the Imperial ships. They moved without heat or noise, their surfaces alive with symbols. Energy readings off the charts, cried the sensor officer. They're scanning us! The spheres passed harmlessly through the ship's hulls, leaving trails of faint light in their wake. Laren watched them with quiet awe. They're not attacking, he said. They're studying. Suddenly, a beam of light extended from the largest tower, connecting directly to the Eternal Sovereign. A voice filled the ship, deep, layered, and echoing through every surface. Children of Pride, it said, calm and ancient. You reached where you were not invited. The crew fell silent. Laren stepped forward. We came seeking understanding, he said carefully. We meant no harm. The voice paused for a moment, then replied, Your words carry the weight of destruction. You follow those who once broke the cycle. Laren frowned. The humans? The light pulsed brighter. No, the voice said. The humans restore. You repeat. The words echoed through the ship, heavy and final. Laren's breath caught. You see them as protectors? He asked quietly. The voice didn't answer. Instead, it showed him. A projection filled the bridge. Visions of ancient battles, entire galaxies burning. Figures of light, the Kythera, stood against armies that resembled Imperial warships. And in the center of the chaos, another shape appeared. A figure unmistakably human, standing beneath a shattered Kytheran city, reaching toward the stars. The vision flickered and faded. It cannot be, Laron whispered. Humans weren't even alive then, the voice answered softly. Time is not what you think. The seeds of life grow again and again. The humans are not new, they are a return. The crew stared in disbelief. Laron sank slowly into his chair, his mind struggling to process the revelation. We fought the same war before, he murmured. And we lost it then, too. Back in the known galaxy, Captain Hale sat alone in the command room of the Erebus. The Terran fleet had returned safely to Earth orbit, but peace felt hollow. The images from Kythera replayed endlessly in his mind. The light, the voice, the warning. You are not ready. What did it mean? Hale leaned back in his chair, staring at the stars. If they remember us, he whispered, then maybe. We've been here before. Dr. Merrick entered quietly. Sir, there's something new, she said. The readings from the ruins haven't stopped. There's still energy coming from the Kythera sector, and it's growing stronger. Hale looked up. Show me. She activated the holographic display, revealing a storm of energy spreading outward like a ripple in water. If it keeps expanding, Merrick said, it'll reach human space within weeks. Hale frowned. The Empire? Gone, she said. No trace. It's as if they were erased from this side of the galaxy. Hale stood, his voice steady. They're not gone. They're somewhere else. He walked to the viewing window, hands behind his back. Prepare the fleet. We're going after them. On Earth, the Terran assembly met once again. Some called Hale reckless. Others believed him a prophet. We just survived a galactic war, one delegate shouted. And now you want to chase ghosts? Hale looked around the chamber, calm and unwavering. Those ghosts are still part of this galaxy, and if we don't find out where they went, someone else will. After a long silence, the Council voted. The Terran Expeditionary Fleet was approved. Humanity was going beyond known space. Days later, the Erebus led its armada through a massive warp gate above Mars. The engines roared softly, golden light bathing their hulls. Hale stood on the bridge, watching as the stars bent and folded. Set course for the Kythera Pulse, he ordered. In the void between galaxies, the Imperial fleet floated helplessly. Life support was stable, but morale was fading. Some crew members whispered that they were dead, trapped in some kind of afterlife. Admiral Laron sat in the dim light of his chamber, recording his thoughts. If the humans are what the Kythera once were, he said quietly, then the Empire's age is ending. We built our power on domination, and they built theirs on survival. Perhaps that's why the stars favor them. The ship trembled. Admiral, a voice called. Something's coming through the rift. The view outside changed. A glowing breach in the distance opened, and through it, human ships emerged. The Erebus appeared first, engines blazing like a sun. Laron stood, half in disbelief, half in relief. They came for us, he whispered. Captain Hale's voice came over the comms. Admiral Laron, do you read? Laron responded slowly. I do. You followed us. Hale smiled faintly. We don't leave people behind. Not even enemies. The two fleets faced each other in the strange void, both humbled, both broken. The Kytheran voice returned one last time, softer now. Perhaps the lesson is learned. You were both children once. Now you must choose what kind of ancestors you will be. Light surrounded both fleets. The stars shifted. The hum of the universe itself seemed to pause. Then, in a single burst of brilliance, everything changed. When the light faded, the Erebus found itself orbiting Earth again. The sky was calm. The stars were familiar. But something had changed in the data. Time had moved forward. Years, maybe decades. No sign of the Empire remained anywhere. Only silence. Hale looked out at the horizon, his voice soft. Maybe this was the warning all along, he said. That power isn't what destroys us. Forgetting is... He turned to his crew, eyes steady. Begin a new record. Title it, The Return of Kythera. Far above the planet, unseen by human eyes, a faint blue light lingered. Watching, waiting, remembering.